welcome to Build. I'm Ricky Camilleri. You saw her as the only fertile woman on the planet in Children of Men, and now she's a lawyer developing a conscience after a hit-and-run cover-up in a New Jersey city. Let's take a look at Clare-Hope Ashitey in 7 seconds.
You worked homicide before?
I'm sick of their eyes. Even when they're dead, they're looking at you and wanting answers.
Dead don't need answers. They're dead.
My son laid in the cold, in pain, for hours. And whoever did this is free.
No one saw you, right?
You keep your mouth shut. Anyone asks you what you're doing in the park, you tell them your job.
It was an accident.
A white cop and a black kid. I don't fucking accents anymore.
A black teenager was left out in the cold to die.
No one cares about Brenton Butler. His life does not factor into the equation of this city.
I'm doing my job.
Job's locking up other cops now.
I didn't become a cop to break the rules. I'm gonna turn myself in.
You're a good cop. You and me, we're a dying breed. And we take care of our own. I want you to think about what kind of father you'd be behind bars.
They're not gonna stop until you put them away.
You never know what happened. And the only one who might ever know is God.
God didn't run my son down in the street and leave him to die. A man did that.
Everybody, please put your hands together for Clare-Hope Ashitey. Let's hear it. Hey.
Hi.
How's it going?
Not bad. How are you?
I love your dress.
Thank you very much. It's not mine, unfortunately, but I'm wearing
Is that
it.
the way that it goes?
It is, yeah, sadly. Like, people lend you clothes and you have to give them back afterwards. I
you
do
ever-
have
you-
my own clothes, by the way. I do
Oh,
have
okay,
my own
good,
clothes.
good. You're not just every day is just a swap for you or anything like that. No.
No.
How does that? I mean, do you ever try to keep them, or you're ever like, could I please take this?
I haven't done that yet. I haven't been that bold. But I'm working my courage up to it. Like, British people are pretty, like, overly polite and timid. And I'm sure if I wasn't British, I'd be like, I'm going to keep this. But I haven't got to that place.
Get it.
Right, yeah,
That's what
exactly.
an
Come
American.
get it back off me.
Let's talk about 7 Seconds, a really great show.
Thank you.
How did you get involved in it?
In a pretty conventional way, to be honest. I got a pilot script back at the end of 2016, and I was at home in London, and I put myself on tape, as actors all around the world do every day, and sent it off and hope for the best. But yeah, I got this script and read it and thought it was great. Really, really loved it, and so hoped to get the job, and I did.
You got the job. Talk to me about your character.
I play KJ Harper, who is a Jersey City prosecutor, and who is doing, when we meet her, is doing pretty badly professionally and socially and emotionally, and is kind of stuck in a rut and seems to be happy to exist there, and ends up with this case landing on her lap almost, well, really, really by accident, she's just in that place at that time, and she thinks it's very straightforward, but as it unravels and as it becomes less straightforward, ends up really fighting to get at the truth of what happened.
Right. What I love about the first episode of the show is that is her finding her moral center. Without giving too much away, it was great to watch a sort of pilot, if you will, even though I doubt they kind of shot a pilot for this. They probably just put it all the way through.
Yeah,
right?
we went all the way through.
Yeah, but the first episode really does feel like a great introduction to the characters, but especially yours. What was it like sort of having that first story to go off of and to play that full arc in the first story?
It was very interesting. It was very intense because we packed a lot into that first episode, into the pilot episode. And like you said, like trying to introduce, because it was written as a pilot, trying to introduce the story and introduce all the characters and set it all up and have people go on a journey that set something up but existed in that episode was, yeah, it was intense, but it was interesting, and it was so involving that you had time to get to know these characters because we did so much and covered so much in the first episode. It was very, very interesting to put that together.
What was it like playing a prosecutor from Jersey City? Did you talk to anybody, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Spent time with Jersey City prosecutors, New York DAs, Jersey City Police, NYPD, went to the courthouse downtown here and the court in Jersey. I had a lot of work to do, and not just because I'm not a lawyer, but also because I'm foreign, and the whole system is quite alien to me. And things work very differently in the UK, both socially in terms of how people are with each other, but also in terms of the judicial system. It's very different. So I had a lot of work to do. Yeah.
Different in pluses or minuses?
But both.
Pros or cons?
In a lot of ways, I mean, a lot of cons, I guess, to be honest, and I guess in terms of what we were focusing on in this show, that we ended up focusing on a lot of those cons, and ended up focusing a lot on how the judicial system here dysfunctions, especially if you're down a certain end of the colour spectrum, and how
It's a pipeline.
Yeah.
Get the cases through. Get
absolutely,
the cases through.
absolutely, and you know, there are a lot of members of American society who don't stand a chance, really, and you don't stand a chance before you've done anything at all, and people just seem to sort of accept. Maybe not accept that it works that way, but are resigned to the fact that it works that way. And it was crazy for me coming in here and learning about this system, because it's so clear to me, and of course it is from an outside perspective, it's so clear to me how it dysfunctions and how unjust it is. But it's like this huge juggernaut that no one can seem to turn around, and it just sort of grinds in the same direction almost despite what anyone does.
I feel like the way you present your character in the first episode, and even a little bit in the second, is very much how we face the system on a daily basis in this country.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, when can I get drunk?
Right. How about right now at work? I think that is what's happened to her, and I can well imagine, and that was part of what we tried to build into the character. You know, this woman who was, you know, very smart and very dedicated, and who had this idealism, and I can well imagine what that would be like, you know, sitting on the outside of it and studying and being young and thinking, I'm going to change things, and I'm not going to behave in this way, and I'm not just going to, you know, toe this line and follow, you know, this arc that is set out for these people. I'm going to change things. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be just. I'm going to treat each case on its individual merits. You know, and then you get into this system that is so much bigger than you and so much more powerful than you. And every time you try and do something good, you have a boss who goes, you can't do that. Or you have a judge who goes, no, that's not what we're going to do. You know, and I think it's really broken her down to the point where she doesn't feel like there's anything she can do. And especially also having that pressure of being African-American in that system, you know, because I spoke to some African-American working those positions, and you know, people think that they're traitors. People see them as traitors because they are, and they sometimes feel that way because they're constantly sending down, you know, black and brown people and a lot of youths, and there seems to be nothing that they can do about it. And a lot of, you know, there are people who are fighting against it, but I think a lot of people are just broken by it.
And even those fighting against it, I've talked to people who work for, you know, attorneys, defense attorneys in Louisiana, the Bronx Defenders. These are the most hopeful of hopeful people who are fighting as hard as they can and are not giving up. And even they suffer from a fair amount of the cynicism that, you know, it's a very unjust and big system in a lot of ways. You get the show, and you shoot the first episode, and you got Regina King in it. Did you know that she was cast in it?
I did. So she was already attached. I got the job very late on. So we started shooting, or we started work on I think the 4th of January that year, and I think I got the job on like the 19th of December or something like that, very late on. So a lot of people were already attached, so it had really taken shape by that point. So I knew what I was coming into, and I had all that to look forward to.
What's it like working with Regina?
Awful. She's the worst, obviously. She's
God, the worst actress.
It's as great as you think it's going to be. And
I
as
interviewed
you want
her,
it to
and
be.
I was like, oh, my, she's just like the greatest person.
She is. She's really nice, which in our industry, you actually don't always come by. You sort of think it's going to, you sort of think most people will be nice, and that's how people should be, but there are a lot of people who aren't in our industry, and not only is she great at her job, which makes my job easier, but she's so personable and warm and easy to get along with and very open and very giving, and was great fun to work with.
And you're the detective in this, who is kind of essentially your partner through a fair amount of it. What is that actor's name?
Michael Mosley.
He's great.
He's so great.
Was he on the show before? I know you said you came late to it. Was he on it before?
He was already attached.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
He was already attached, and he was a great partner to have. You know, he's such a great actor, and we got on really well. And coming into it, I knew that I had to spend a lot of time with this person, and there's always the anticipation of what that's going to be like, and if you're going to get on, essentially. Because more than anything else, I had to do a lot of like sitting in cars with this guy for like days on end.
There's a lot of car sitting.
There's a lot of sitting in cars, and I was like, what if he's the worst? And what am I going to do? You know, it's fine. You can get along with people, but we became friends really quickly, and I massively enjoyed his company. And it was, you know, I'm pretty new to this world, so the entire cast actually, you know, who are very experienced in this world, and were all very, very friendly and very
world
open.
of TV.
In the world of American TV.
Okay, yeah.
I would say I've only done one other job here, and you know, a lot of these actors have been working in this industry in this country for a long time, and it was nice to have access to that advice, really, because I don't know what's up. I just sort of turned up as a foreigner and went, yeah, please.
Well, that said, I think this show, and maybe even Shots Fired, which you were part of before, are sort of in the middle of like American TV and British TV in terms of number of episodes and how they are sort of expected to function narratively. Whereas American television, I think quintessentially is like, even though it's kind of changed, 22 episodes, like the kind of Scandal.
Yeah, that's a lot of episodes.
It's a lot of episodes, right?
That's a lot.
Yeah, I think they do like the maybe 17 to 22 on those. It used to all be 22 all the time.
A lot.
Isn't that crazy?
That's nuts. Like, after 6 months, we did 10 episodes. After 6 months, we were just exhausted. Absolutely exhausted. I can't imagine doing, I guess that's a whole year. You just do it for a whole year and that's it.
You're probably like a teacher. You get like 2 months off. You know? Kind of where it goes.
Yeah. That must be really, really tough.
One of the things about 7 Seconds, we talked about this a little bit in the green room. I almost wept when I saw it, was the second episode is in memory of Jonathan Demme, who is, for those that don't know, he's the greatest, one of the greatest film directors of all time. Stop Making Sense, Silence of the Lambs, Something Wild, and a lot of TV in recent years. What was it like working with him?
It was great. I'd worked with him, so very briefly on Shots Fired before doing this. And he's was a very wonderful, very passionate man, and he came in and he knew the story inside out, and he was passionate about the story and about the characters and about their character arcs and what we thought about our characters. And it's always amazing working with someone like that who really cares. And he worked so hard, and he wasn't well when he worked with us. That was clear, but that was secondary to him because he's so passionate about what he does. And it was very enjoyable. It was very enjoyable working with him. It was just sad to see like how poorly he was. And we would be doing night shoots and be outside doing 15-hour, shoots when in the freezing cold. And he was like, this is what I'm not going to phone it in. I'm not going to end this day early. If we need another take, he's like, let's do another take. And that kind of passion is like incredible to witness.
He really loved what he did.
Absolutely, no doubt.
He loved actors and the whole process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to turn into audience questions just a second, but I want to ask you about Children of Men, because I think Children of Men is one of the great films of the last 20 years. It's also one of the most maybe prescient films of the last 20 years.
Sadly.
Yeah, like it's grown more and more true as we've aged away from it. But what was that shoot like? I mean, especially those shots that a couple of those sort of historical shots from that movie.
I mean, that shoot was crazy for me because I was so early on in my career, and
like your second
it's the second movie I'd done, and I was only 18 at the time, and so I came onto this huge set and didn't really know what I was doing. Like, it was very bewildering. It was a very interesting experience, but a huge, very steep learning curve. And so a lot of that stuff they were doing at the time, I did not know that was not normal. I was just like, this is how people make films, right? You just do everything.
When they cast you, they're like, she's not going to, she won't complain.
Right,
She'll think this is real.
And it wasn't really until afterwards that I and that technical stuff, look, has nothing to do with me. There are people far smarter, more creative than me that put those together. made that happen. But it wasn't really until afterwards that I understood what we'd done and I understood what we'd been a part of, because I didn't know and I didn't realize, which in a way I do think is good. I think I would have struggled a lot more if I'd felt the pressure of what we were doing. But yeah, I just sort of like turned up every day and went, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to say? And it went all right, I think.
How much choreography did you do beforehand? Like, how many times did you run through those things before you actually shot them?
A lot of choreography, yeah. Because, so the scene in the car, there was a technicality to it in that you had to move in your seat depending on where the camera was, because it dropped down from above. And if you didn't move, you were likely going to be knocked out by it. So we had to figure out, all the seats were made to recline so that you could recline out of the way when it wasn't near you. So that had to be learned for safety purposes, really, and to make that work. And then, that outside shot when we're walking through the, battleground, really.
Going down the stair or up the stair?
Going into the building.
Yeah.
Definitely had to be rehearsed, because there were just so many people and there were explosions, and it was like a 3 or 4 hour reset. So I only had a couple of chances to do it, and everyone had to be, you don't want to be the person who like mess it up and, set everyone back like 3 or 4 hours. So you really don't want to be that guy. So there was a lot of choreography and everyone had to be on point, really, because we only had a couple of chances to do it.
Did people, since that was only your second project, did people guide you through it and really help you? Or were they kind of like, you should figure this out on your own?
You know what? I did. There were some very helpful people. I think broadly, though, so even though I was only 18, you come to that as an adult, up to the age of 16, certainly in the UK, you're seen as a child and you have a chaperone and all of that stuff. And beyond that, and I did my first film when I was 17. Yeah, so I was only just, termed as an adult in this world. And, there are all these people who are working in this world as adults. And I think sometimes people don't really realize, and also because when you are that age, you're like, of course I'm an adult. Look at me, I'm so super grown up. And you're just putting on this front of going, of course I know what's up and of course I know what I'm doing, when you really don't. And I think that it can be very hard for people to know in that world where everyone has their job and their track and they're trying to do the best they can do unless you reach out for help. It's very hard for people to know that you need it. And I certainly was definitely pretending to be an adult when I did those jobs. I had no idea what was going on.
Let's get some questions from our audience. Who has a question? Right here.
Hi. So I want to know, since you were talking earlier about how you met with Jersey DAs and prosecutors, what was something that you learned from them that you really surprised you?
Gosh, a lot of things. One of the biggest surprises to me with how your system works here, and this is certainly in New York and Jersey, I'm not sure about, I know there are different laws in different states, but the arraignment process is crazy to me here, that everyone who has a contact with the police is arraigned before a judge. And I was downtown at the courthouse and went to arraignment court, it was like midnight or something, and there are these chain of people coming through that system. And I'm not a lawyer or anyone in the legal profession, but it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense, because the legal system is bogged down in this backlog of cases that they're trying to get through. And it doesn't matter how minor your offense, that you get dragged before a judge, and these people are in there in the middle of the night. They don't want to be there. There are underpaid prosecutors and underpaid public defenders who are in there, and they're not doing their best work because they cannot be doing their best work for you. And you're putting these people into the system. And often, especially for a lot of African American and Latin American people who end up in a system where they can't pay bail, so they get put in jail, that thing as well of being too poor to be out of the system is insane to me, where basically if you have money and you can pay bail, you're fine. But if you don't have money and you can't pay bail, you're not fine. And it's not perfect in the UK by any extent, but yeah, I think how bail works here and how arraignment court works here was baffling to me and makes no sense, and is part of what makes this system so unfair and so stacked against people from a certain socio-economic part of this country.
Next question. I agree.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, well, thank you.
I was wondering, what was your most memorable day on set for this series?
Oh, that's a good question. I think probably we did in, I want to say maybe the 5th episode, we went into, because it's set in Jersey, but we shot in New York, and we shot a bit in Liberty Park. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Looking out over New York. And, I mean, this part of the country is so beautiful, and this city is so mesmerizing. And, you know, there's just a moment where I was just like, this is like my job, and I'm doing something I really care about. I'm in this incredible place with all these people who are so good at what they do. And, yeah, like, it's very basic, but it was a very special day just because it was so beautiful, and it was so quiet, and it was, like, covered in snow. And, yeah, it was nice.
I think we have time for one more. You.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering if there are any like archetypes for a female lead that you try to avoid.
Most of them, really. It's
Well, this character kind of the writing avoids that
right, exactly,
for you. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's part of what was very attractive to me about this script, because there are so many scripts out there, and I read them all the time, and they have been being written since forever, and they keep being written, where female characters, and, you know, often it is, you know, it goes down race lines as well, where they're just not written like real people. And it's very frustrating, and often you have female characters who are written to service the male characters within a script, and that's very frustrating. They're not really people in their own right, and or you have racial stereotypes that are stuck to, you know, you have the Asian character who's great at maths or plays the violin, or preferably both. And it's just, you know, you read those and you're just like, this is, sometimes there's truth in a stereotype, but that isn't like universally how the world works. And it's very frustrating. And I do, you know, look, we've all got rent to pay and we all need to pay our bills, right? But I do preferably stay away from those because they're just not interesting to play. They bear no relation, at least to any reality that I'm aware of.
It's also really hard to show up. It's hard to show up to any job that you don't want to do, but it's very hard for actors to show up unexcited about performing.
Right.
Because there's nothing more vulnerable and uncomfortable than being unhappy with the performance that you're giving, but not caring enough to do
Absolutely,
to do more.
do anything about it. And, you know, I worked in an office for 3 years, and I was a PA in a financial services company, and I hated my job, and I was not motivated, but it didn't matter as long as I did it. Yeah. Like, I could still be good at my job, but not want to be there. And it's very different in this profession, where it is very clear when someone is not invested in what they're doing.
And there's also a weird feeling for actors, I think, when you're performing as a character that you don't relate to or understand or feel, and how boxed in that can feel, and how few ideas you end up having,
right.
Which is just, it's a nightmare.
It is, and it's you can feel on those jobs where there isn't any passion, you feel it on set, you feel it every day when people are just going through the motions and getting it in the can, and then they're just going to go home, and, you know, and it's a very different job when people are passionate and excited about what they're doing, and there's like a spark in the air, and there's nothing like it. There's nothing like working in that way.
Yeah, when you get on set and you're like, "Can I try this?" and the other actor's like, "Come on, kid,
right, exactly.
We're trying to go home at the end of the day here."
Like, it doesn't matter. No one's gonna watch this. Let's just go home. Yeah.
The show, fortunately, this show is not like that. It's wonderful. A lot of people are going to watch it. It premieres on Netflix this Friday.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody give Claire a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.